But the Kenyan manufacturing industry or sector is a critical contributor to the Kenyan GDP. However, there has been stagnation in the last 20 plus years because the contribution of GDP to manufacturing still stands at around 8.5%. There has been a deliberate effort by the government to try and push these to about 20% by the year 2030. But this is looking like it's a long shot. We'll be exploring all the options on the table and what we need to do to jumpstart manufacturing, bearing in mind that we are facing the fourth industrial revolution and Kenya cannot afford to be left behind. That's a conversation we should be having here. And of course, we'll be retracing the drive to boost manufacturing here in Kenya. Way back up to the sessional paper number 10 of 1965. What did he talk about in terms of driving the industrial agenda here in Kenya? And also something else very interesting that we shall be looking here is the artificial intelligence in agriculture. You got it right. You know, when you look at the Kenyan agriculture sector, you're talking about 7.5 million smallholder farmers. They don't even have any formal education. But you want to integrate AI into agriculture. How do you drive all that matrix to ensure that no one is left behind? This is a serious stuff that we are discussing here. You're watching this check live from Broadcasting House. Let me tell you something. We've been having the visitation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla since when? They arrived here on Monday evening, right? And today they are in Mombasa. What are they doing in Mombasa? We have our team on the ground. They shall be giving us an update. Plus, the president also is in Mombasa. Not actually Mombasa, but in Kilifi County, so he's at the coast. And so he is on a development mission there. What kind of an agenda is the president having? I told you this is Base Check. My name is O'Brien Kimani. We are live from Broadcasting House. We have our teams on the ground of reporters, and we shall be crisscrossing the country just to find out what news is making headlines in those counties. I told you something about the manufacturing agenda here in Kenya. We are here to discuss this concept. And guess who is on the set with us today? We have Lawrence Njenga. He's the head of communication at Kenya Association of Manufacturers. This is the largest platform for manufacturers in Kenya. It has been around for more than 60 years. And so you know for sure it's a key driver in the industrialization agenda. Lawrence, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me, O'Brien.
Very good indeed. And next to Lawrence, we have Adnan Merdin. He's the CEO or the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Dr. Mattress. Yes, they're in the business of making mattresses. And he was telling me that they have even diversified. Now they have moved into furniture making. That tells you that they are growing. They have been around for 10 years now. And we shall be looking at what exactly is the next 10 years likely to look like for Dr. Mattress. Adnan Merdin, thank you very much indeed for finding time to be here with us.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
And I want to start with you. I mean, you're from Turkey.
Yes.
You've been around for 10 years. How has the journey been for you in terms of setting up your East African industrial base here in Kenya, and of course the progress that you have made in the last decade?
Okay, first of all, 10 years is for the company. I myself have been here. This is my 37th year. And proudly Turkish Kenyan. I'm a Kenyan citizen at the same time. 10 years has been, journey with the company has been great. The response from the clients have been great. In fact, I can thank all my clients from here. If they were not there, we will not grow this size. I believe Dr. Mattress is proof to Kenya that manufacturing agenda can be successful, the one that government is trying to implement. So we have achieved what we call vertical integration in our manufacturing. And we had a slogan, we still have it for Mattress, but for the overall company, the Mattress slogan was better sleep, better health. But for the overall company now, together with diversification, we are calling it Made in Kenya, made by Kenyans, for the rest of the world. So we believe we stand as Dr. Mattress approved that things can be manufactured in Kenya.
Very good.
Yes.
And you were telling me that every year your sales stands at about 50,000 mattresses, on average.
About, yes.
About 50,000.
Yes.
Well, I'll be coming back to find out, more about, your venture here in Kenya. Some of the challenges that you have encountered along the process and how you managed to wiggle out, and what kind of better policies that we need to institute in place so that we can ensure that we attract more investors to set up the industrial base here in Kenya. Well, our conversation this morning revolves around the manufacturing agenda here in Kenya, how to deepen manufacturing, and of course, how to attract more investors to invest in manufacturing. Adnan Merdin is the CEO and founder of Dr. Mattress, and we're also in the company of Njenga, who is the head of communications at Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We have heard from you, Mehdi. I mean, your journey in setting up their East African operations here in Kenya. Now I want to turn to Njenga. I mean, when you look at Kenya Association of Manufacturers, what is the agenda of KAM in driving the industrialization or manufacturing agenda here in Kenya?
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. Well, as you rightly put it, Kenya Association of Manufacturers is an umbrella body, representing over 1,300 members. And we are talking about local manufacturers who are involved in local manufacturing and value add of product. So one of our biggest mandates is basically to help our members be set to be able to grow the manufacturing sector and manufacturing agenda. And you mentioned, as you were starting off, that true manufacturing sector has been declining in terms of contribution to GDP. And we are looking at how then can manufacturing sector, being a key agenda for this economy, how can we grow our economy through manufacturing? Because when you look at manufacturing, yes, there's been some decline. If you were to look from the statistics from maybe 2011, where manufacturing was at about 9.3% contribution to GDP, slowing down to around 7.8 in the year 2002. However, that does not mean that manufacturing has been shrinking. It has also been meaning that other sectors have been growing. So we sat with the president last year, in the last quarter of last year, and we challenged ourselves together with the government that how can we then move manufacturing, contribution to GDP from 7.8% to about 30%, 20% by the year 2030. And as KAM, after sitting down and getting the mandate from the board, we realized that we can only grow this through 4 key areas or 4 key pillars. And in here, we're looking at first, global competitiveness. This is ensuring that our local enterprises, local industries are able to produce goods in the right quality, in the right price that can compete in anywhere in this world. So you're looking at competing in markets in Europe, in the US, when you're looking, for example, in Africa with the AFCTA, a market opening up. So we want our Kenyan enterprises, our Kenyan businesses to compete anywhere in the world. Secondly, and I'll go quickly, is export-led growth. And I'm happy that, the cabinet in December last year adopted this as a strategy to grow our economy. So we're looking at how can we then improve our industries to be of more, to look in outward, not just in Kenya, but look at other opportunities that we have. We have the European market, we have the African market, COMESA, ESC, and it's a big opportunity for us. So we are looking also in terms of how can we enable our manufacturers, to take advantage, for example, if it's agriculture, value add, and basically be able to export these products in value-added form, so that then also we can create more value. Number 3 also is agriculture for industry. And here we are looking at how can we integrate our industries and link them backward so that they can be linked with our farmers. For example, a lot of our millers, as you know, and I think this is something that we've been challenged, especially the last 1 or 2 years as a country, have been getting challenges of getting the raw materials for their production. So we are looking at how can we link our farmers, remove the middleman, and ensure that our manufacturers and the farmer have a good synergy to be able to be an answer for our manufacturers. And lastly, we're looking at SME development. I mean, for us to be able to grow the country, the only people who can help us this is through SMEs. Large manufacturers such as Dr. Mattress all started small. So we're looking at how can we incubate this. And as you look at, for example, as the CS who is just speaking right now, we're looking at how can the country, this is a hustler government, how can we ensure that the small player grows to be a large manufacturer. And that is the way we feel and we know that we're going to grow the manufacturing sector. And we're not just looking at just numbers of 20%. If you look at them in terms of real value, we are looking at manufacturing currently is the second largest employer for waged employees after government. We are looking at 353,000 jobs. Now we feel, and once we did our checks and our numbers, we feel like manufacturing by the year 2030 growing by 20% of contribution to GDP. We are looking at 1 million jobs creation. We're looking at over 1 trillion shillings, contribution to the exchequer, and also looking in terms of the value output of the manufacturers or the manufacturing sector to over 6 trillion. I mean, those are not just just mere numbers. Those are real numbers that we believe that can help this country grow.
And I like the fact that you have managed to enumerate the strategies that KAM together with the government is going to employ to try and deepen the contribution of manufacturing to our GDP. But help me understand this. Yeah. How do you plan to do these, bearing in mind that out of every 10 products that are sold in the Kenyan market, 7 are imported.
Yes.
And this is a deterioration from what was there about 20 years ago, where we used to have about 4 imported and 6 manufactured here in Kenya. How do you plan to drive this?
Absolutely. As I just rightly said, now we live in a global village. We have linkages. The world is a global village right now. So you find like if as a country we are not prepared well, then you get a lot of influx, of imports into the country. But we are working with the government in setting up policies that are geared to pro-local manufacturing as opposed to importation of finished products. And this has been an ongoing practice with the government, which we are happy to. But also we are also helping our internal local manufacturers build capacities to be able to take these opportunities. Because like I've said, when we are able to be globally competitive, there is no reason why we should not compete with China. There's no reason we should not compete in the US. So we are looking therefore at building the capacity within our local industries, building the right investments, and also looking at the government to creating the right fiscal policies to protect the local manufacturers.
But I mean, we must also be alive to these facts.
Yes.
We can't talk about competing with countries like China.
Why not?
You're looking at an economy that is almost 18 trillion US dollars,
yes,
and about 1.3 billion people, concentrated in one country.
Yes.
And here you're looking at a country called Kenya, whose GDP is less than 120 billion US dollars,
yes,
and about 60 million people. I know that Kenya is a member of the World Trade Organization, whereby, there are rules that are supposed to guide, intra-country trade and inter-country trade.
Yes.
But that doesn't stop, countries from employing protectionism.
Yes.
To try and prop up some of their critical industries.
Absolutely.
Are we looking at a situation whereby this is likely to be the way we are going? Because look at, for example, the US. The US is always very fast in employing tactics and policies that are going to protect their auto industry.
Yes.
Their ICT industry. Why can't we do the same?
Absolutely, and I think this is a good challenge, even to our government. And I'm rightly so. We can see strides by the government, moving towards that direction, because for you to be able to protect your local investment, if you look at countries, for example, like Indonesia, you're looking at countries that put tax measures, to discourage exportation of raw products, for example, and ensuring that you add value addition to your products before you export. So if you look at Kenya, we need to therefore look at what are the things that we can do as Kenyans that we do better than the other parts of the world. If you look at products, for example, like tea, for example, we have about 5%, only 5% of tea is exported out of Kenya in processed form. 95% of the tea is exported in raw form. So therefore, as government, we have to work with government, with the industry, of course with the private sector, and ensuring that some of these things that we can be able to take quickly advantage of, the low-hanging fruits, that if we today, for example, value added our tea and ensured that every tea that leaves this country, and the president has been very clear that I want the tea that is living in Kenya to be processed, then it means we have better returns. And if you look at it, better returns to the manufacturer, better returns to the government, and better returns to the to the local farmers. And that's just one of the sectors. If you, for example, look at leather sector, we slaughter a lot of animals year on, but we lose our leather. If you compare that to countries like Italy, countries that, for example, have probably 5 or 10% of leather, in their country. But if you look at the output of what they do with that 5%, is enormous. We are importing shoes from Turkey, isn't it? If you look at Kenyan market, for example, every year we have 4 million shoes produced or imported for school-going children. If you only just took advantage of that 4 million, imagine how much that can mean for the economy. Yes, you're right. The government needs to create policies that are favorable for local investment, and also to protect the local investment, because that's the only way we can do. Every country is doing that. Look at Egypt; it's doing a lot of policies geared towards exportation and protecting the local investment. And even Kenya, we have to do the same.
Very good. Our conversation this morning revolves around driving Kenya's manufacturing agenda. Lawrence Njenga is the head of communications at Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and to be also in the company of Adnan Merdin. He's the CEO and founder of Dr. Mattress. I want to turn to you now. You're from Turkey, and Turkey is a big economy. You're looking at the 17th largest economy in the world and the 7th largest economy in Europe, with a nominal GDP of about $1.3 trillion US, and a purchasing power parity of about $3.6 trillion US. And so you're talking about a major economic powerhouse. What drove you to set up your base in Kenya, as opposed to Turkey, whereby you have a bigger middle class?
That's a very good question, actually. And that question can also answer partly the opportunities here. So now, if you talk about Turkey, in layman's language, I will explain in the way of, we say, all the corners are taken. So there are big players there. The manufacturing evolved, and they reached to a level. I don't want to touch sensitive matters in terms of colonialization, past of Kenya. Kenyan's past is taken away. People's mentality is taken away. I look more into the positive things. So when I came here, I couldn't buy, that was year 1987, I couldn't buy sofa set because it was quite expensive. And in my own ways, I discovered Gikomba, Kantiba Station. And because in Turkey, now to answer partly your question, why manufacturing is developing there, is we have a culture. And now in my business here in Kenya, I'm applying that culture. What is that culture? The culture is that the child, in their free time, they go to do apprenticeship in industries. At that young age, they're exposed. So they ask me, how come I know almost every field? I am that product. From the age of 6, 7, I've been in factories. So now, why did I set up a shop here? God brought me here. That part is a long story. When I was in Gikomba as early as 1987.
87?
87, yes. 1987, I saw huge talent. I see that talent still here in Kenya. We talk about jua kali. Since I'm in a Kenyan broadcasting. I don't need to explain Jokali.
Yes.
And even today, when I'm driving, with all that technology I have in my factory, I say that gentleman or that lady at the roadside is doing better job than what I'm doing in my factory. I'm not talking about the last finishing, but please let us have the comparison. Given the opportunities, given the facilities, that person is making his own tool. From that tool, he's making his own machine, and he's coming up with his own design, whether he's looking at magazine or this, but he's seeing that, visualizing it. We have CNC machines. We have something called code writing. So you have the image. You have to put that image into the computer turns it into the code. Code goes to the numerical numbers go to the machine, and the machine cuts accordingly. Now imagine that gentleman or that lady at the roadside is doing this mentally. So when I saw that in 1987, I kept on telling myself, we need manufacturing in this country. Then another advantage, English. So I went to colonial thing. Yes, British were here, and this is my own little thinking, my own analyzing that they left English here. Turkey, if they solve their English problem, their GDP will go 5 times higher. And that problem is already solved here. So we get fresh students from in that apprentice and attachment program. We get, I'm a graduate of Polytechnic myself. I'm a graduate of, now I think today it's called National Technical University of Kenya, the one Haile Selassie here.
Oh.
I was there for 3 years. That's where I learned Turkish, and that's where I became to know Kenya. And that is when I decided that I will remain in this country. So the English is so important that this is now to support him, that we can fight China, if we say, use that word of fighting, to answer your question.
We can compete.
Yes. So we can compete in the sense that we don't have to compete globally, but we look at our own continent here, Africa. So we can become China. Kenya can become China for the rest of African countries. And our company, Dr. Mattress, is approved to that. So now we get that student in the level of second year, third year, and have that student do attachment in our factory. The moment that student graduates, he is in our factory. And with the right mindset, with the right vertical integration process, theory, and application, the result is Dr. Mattress. So we do have that hope. But then in that hope, we need the support of the government. We need more support of CAM. Yeah. So we have two. It takes, there's a saying, it takes two to tango.
Yep.
I see a lot of,
tango is a dance.
Yes. I see a lot of blame to put towards the government. But I look at myself first and I say, the commercial sector, first of all, has to straighten itself. You said yourself, in some years back, it was 4 to 6. Today is 3 to 7. So as a commercial people, we have to take responsibility, and we have to have some sacrifices
that we have to make.
We have to make.
And I like the fact that you're saying that, I mean, you know, there is the role of the government in driving up, better policies, investing in proper infrastructure. And let's give it to the government. When you look at the last 15 years, 20 years, there has been massive investment in broadening our infrastructure, in modernizing our infrastructure. There is a lot of expansion that has gone into the port of Mombasa. There is a new railway line, from the port of Mombasa all the way to Nairobi, to Naivasha. There is a whole new highway. There is a brand new port at the port of Lamu. And so the government has been doing a lot. The government has also been trying to reform our investment climate by coming up and developing proper regulations. And we have seen this with Companies Act, investment policies. And so then, are there other grey areas that you feel that we need to work on as a country in order to create a conducive environment for investors to come in?
There are. And as you said, I agree with you, we give it to government. Kenya, I used to say Kenya is a young country, and somebody corrected me. Kenya is a baby, 60 years old, baby. And
60 years old,
yes,
and still a baby.
You see, look, we are receiving the British King. How many years? You talk about Turkey. In my ways, if I look at Kenya and Turkey, I think Kenya is doing well.
Yes, compared to where Turkey was 60, when it was 60 years.
You see,
during the
I look
Ottoman
at it this
Empire.
way. There's Ottoman Empire, before Ottoman Empire, there's Seljuk Empire, before Seljuk Empire, the Han Empire. You see, and we were never colonized, and we have been manufacturing. You remember I said the past is stolen in Kenya? So my great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather had some sort of skills. And then he was able to apply those skills in private sector. He was able to sell, manufacture. So when you look at it from that angle, I think with the sources we have, if Kenya will do better and will catch up better in the sense of you know, we say we are all mad, but degree matters. Better in the sense of the process of how we can grow the country, yeah, and with the resources of human talent here. We don't have petrol, we don't have diamond, we don't have, but we have Kenyan employees. We have Kenyan youth. Kenyan youth is the diamond and gold for me. To answer your question, is that government is doing well to a degree. The gray areas have to be addressed very quickly, especially in manufacturing. So in the sense of trying to protect, if I analyze, we have locally manufactured, then we have locally manufactured, but it is manufactured here but do not meet the international standard. Then we have locally manufactured in that international standard, it is not to the economies of scale.
Yeah.
When it is not economies of scale, the cost of the component, if I take the example of mattress, in mattress we have 6-7 different components. The reason Dr. Mattress has become successful, I have realized I am not able to get the international standard components, and I was importing. Then I said, the only way we can succeed here is to start producing those components locally. Yes. Now there, I can give you one of the policy that the government put in is very good. When you bring in machinery, that machinery is 100% reduced from your tax at the end of the year. Or maybe there's 50% first, 25% the second year. Yeah. But the challenge is now, the fellow on the roadside, how is he going to buy that machine? So I will challenge the banks here, and I will challenge the government here. How can we promote that fellow at the roadside to reach to that cheap money? That's number one. Number two, in terms of the government is protecting local manufacturer and applying the duties. Yeah? But then the government and CAM and any other organization similar to CAM, we should come together and look at those gray areas. One of the gray area, yes, I can make the investments, but some of the investments are not visible yet. I give you an example. We bring the mattress fabric. Fabric is not produced here. I need to make that.
So you import that?
We import that. I used to import the spring. Then God enabled us. The responsibility that I said, we did not eat, we did not spend, we did not buy cars. We put all our money in that machine. One machine enabled us to get the second and third. We did not live in luxury.
For making the coil springs.
Exactly, for making the coil spring. The same thing goes to the CNC cutting machine, the same thing goes to CNC combining machine and blah, blah. All that is in place now. What we import in there is the fabric. And that fabric here, now that's the gray area. And it's very simple. It's gray, but it's very simple. Government has to take one step ahead. They can use CAM in that. We need to have what we call the inspectors. So I'm coming to that inspector thing. The fabric is subjected to 25% duty. Now,
when it is imported.
Where it is imported. That 25% duty actually, because of the that avalanche, there's something called FOB, there's something called CIF, meaning you buy, you pay, you put in the container, the transportation cost, freight cost, coming to the port, this blah blah, it goes to 50 to 70%. So you're buying something for $10, it's costing you at $17 here. Yeah, that $17, if you want to export,
you're not competitive.
Is already chopping your head off.
And why is it impossible to get the fabric in Kenya?
The investment for the time being, so the dynamics work like this. You need to import first, you need to create the demand, and somebody like yourself or like him or any other manufacturer see that demand, then he says, yes, I have this money, I can go to the bank, then I can make this investment. That is how it works all over the world.
Very well.
There's one more thing I want to say. So if that fabric comes in at that cost, and we make the mattress here, and if we are protected, you see, I'm going to call myself, if I'm protected 100%, understand? Then I am only able to sell in the local market, but I'm not able to export. So my responsibility is to make the D mattress with the D highest technology, apply all the economies of scale. Then the government comes in and says, okay, for this aspect, since it is not being produced in this country, I give you duty remission. Now I can give you examples of Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania. Actually, producers now in those countries in the next 2-3 years can't kill Dr. Mattress. We are actually, the reason we are diversifying is to protect ourselves, to increase basket volume. Otherwise, we are afraid for future. Today, we have mattresses coming from Uganda for low-income people and flooding Kisumu. That is one thing. That's local market now. But then you say China. We can actually beat China in their game here. We can export from here to America. I'm talking about only mattress business. 70% of mattress consumption in America is pulled from China. Why can't we get 5% of that? Why can't we get 10%?
And we have the capacity to do that.
But then I will challenge my CAM. I'm a member, and I'm a CAM also. So I'm saying I'm challenging my CAM. The exhibition we are doing is very good. We have received the PSS and this.
The CSS,
Few seconds. We receive them, few seconds. We need that attention. We are inviting them to our factories. They need to come and see what is being done here. CAM has to be more active in this. We have to really drive this agenda, and we can succeed.
Very good. Because I can see we're almost coming to the tail end of this conversation, I want to hear from Njenga. I mean, you know, for the longest time in this country, manufacturers have always decried, you know, high inflation, high production cost, high energy cost, you know, competition from imported goods and so on. How are you engaging the government to ensure that these issues are being addressed?
Right, thank you, Brian. Just picking up from what my friend has and our member has just mentioned, the answer to that and how we're looking at it, one, we're not fighting with government, we are looking for a collaboration. And we work with government, you know, from day in, day out, to just try and find, you know, what is best for the industry. What are we asking our government, and what we are working with our government is creating a conducive business environment for local industry to thrive. And what do I mean by this? And I'll just give you like 2 or 3 examples. When you look, for example, at our fiscal policy, when you look at the policies you're making, What we are saying and what our members are saying is we need to ensure that our fiscal policy or our policies are predictive in such a way that an investor like Dr. Mattress can be able to make an investment with a full knowledge of what will Kenya fiscal policy be like 5 years from now. Because one of the challenges we're having, and we understand that the government has a responsibility to collect taxes, deal with the other obligations on expenditure and all that. But what you're asking is, if you don't look at that, if you look, for example, we are just dealing with the effects of the Finance Act 2023, but already we are already talking about the MTR, the medium-term revenue strategy, and coming with so many proposals on what we need to tax. Before even we take the shocks of that Finance Act, we already now taking proposals for Finance Act 2024.
Yeah.
So then what that does is that if I'm an investor, I'm going to be a bit shy in putting my money in a place whereby I'm not very comfortable or understanding what's the fiscal the policy going to be, and that is one. Number two, for us, then the government has to create a conducive environment by enabling the necessary infrastructure to enable manufacturing. The biggest cost to manufacturing, as Dr. Mattress has mentioned, is the high cost of production in Kenya. Then how do you address that? And you don't need to go far. Pick one of the aspects, the cost of power. Our cost of power has been increasing day in, day out. Power is a key ingredient in manufacturing, isn't it? Then when you look ourselves, as Dr. Mattress is saying, if he has to be able to compete with Uganda, with Tanzania, with Egypt, because you're looking at AfCFTA, it's a free trade market. We're looking at a GDP worth over $2.7 billion, trillion dollars. Then we have to enable him to be able to be competitive and have an edge of our neighbors. And he cannot be able to do that if the few input costs are higher than our neighbors are having. Then we have to enable him to be competitive. He's producing quality goods, but then how does he compete with our neighbors if we are talking about export? And that is the other thing. And then the third one is, as is mentioned, is also looking into expanding our market access. He's rightly mentioned, right now we are doing a local summit, manufacturing summit and expo, the Changamuka Festival at KICC, beginning from 31st to 2nd of November, where we're looking into, bridging the gap between the manufacturer, the producers, with the consumer. We're inviting the consumers, come see what our local manufacturers are able to do. Come and enjoy the same quality that Dr. Mattress will be able to export. Come and enjoy the same clothes that the Americans buy that are made in Kenya. That it is possible for us Kenyans to enjoy the high quality goods, favorable prices, and also appreciate what our local manufacturing is capable of doing. So therefore, Brian, looking forward, we are working with government. We're in constant conversation. It's an engagement process that we're doing, and just trying to and see how we can do this. And credit where it's due. Government has taken a lot of our proposals. Every year the government listens to our proposals. But what we are saying is we still have a room to do more. We can still do more to be able to beat our competitors. If Egypt, who are looking at the market in the AfCFTA, free trade area market, have a better edge than Kenya, then we lose out as a country. So we have to ensure that we are competitive enough by lowering the cost of production and making the business environment conducive for local manufacturing to thrive.
Very good. Adnan, before we wrap it up,
I just want to comment something on what my member saying here.
You do that once I conclude my my question to you. I want you to tie what he has said with what I'm going to hear from you. I mean, when you look at the future of manufacturing in Kenya, what do you see? And I want you to tie it up with what Lawrence has said.
What Mr. Njenga said, that the credit is due to the government. And you explained very well that there's only that gray area. So I think we need the commercial, private sector, manufacturers need to be more transparent, and then they need to go to the government. My experience is every time I go to Kenya Bureau of Standards, every time I go to KRA, as long as my point is valid, I get help. So I think that's the key. The key is the transparency. The key is having to do what in terms of if it is demanufacturing, what America is doing, what China is doing, is what we need to do here. The gray area is that I'm requesting government to have more interaction with us. I'm requesting if they have that interaction, then they will understand, then the policies will come in better, and then we will be enabled. I see there's a pull and push a little bit. Government needs revenue, the government needs taxation, and then now what is the easiest taxation? The easiest taxation is pot, yeah? So, but then in some cases that pot taxation is like killing the chicken which is given golden egg. In my case, in our case, in Kenya, we haven't reached to the golden egg. We are talking about the normal egg. We want to sell that egg and we want to make money, and the chicken keeps on giving that egg. What I mean is that if we have that interaction, if we have that platform with the government, and we create that value chain, meaning in some cases, like the Ugandan government doing, the Rwandan government doing, if we have those remissions, but proper, transparent, without hurting any local manufacturer, if we bring all the players on the table, and then have that delegation or have that inspection body to go to the factories and inspect properly, then we will have extra employees. Dr. Mattress is a bit evident to that. In 2014, we had 7 employees. Now, less than 10 years down, we have reached almost to 700 employees. Mm-hmm. If we were paying X VAT, now we are paying 10 times X VAT. If we were paying 2 payee, we are paying 20 times that payee. So when you pay the payee, the same person who is receiving that salary is buying goods. You are producing, he is buying from you. He is renting house, or he is going to a housing scheme. Our president wants to have that housing scheme. For that, we have to have employees. So my request, and to answer you, your future is actually bright. From my point where I'm standing, future is very bright. Yeah, but then we need to have that connectivity. We have a disconnect. It's sometimes, like I say, the disconnect between the boss and the employee. It's a pull and push.
Very good.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we have to come to the end of this conversation. Yeah, I mean, we've been here for the last, almost 1 hour, discussing nothing more but, how to drive manufacturing here in Kenya. Lawrence, Njenga, and Adnan, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much
for spending your 1 hour with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, you have heard it from him. I mean, from the two gentlemen, we've been talking about how to drive Kenya's manufacturing agenda and how we are going to deal with the bottlenecks, and you have heard it from the two gentlemen. Our conversation next is on how to deepen artificial intelligence in agriculture. That conversation is coming up next. You're watching a Biz Check. We are back with more. Stay right here.